Lowe's knows when you're looking for reliability, the right brand makes all the difference. And now, Lowe's is the exclusive home improvement retailer for the Whirlpool water treatment line, including their Wi-Fi softener, under-sink filtration system, and more. With Whirlpool's proven performance and our everyday low prices, better tasting, better quality water is within reach. Shop pro-trusted brands like Whirlpool and more, in-store or online. Lowe's, we help, you save.
Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. So glad you're here, folks. Listen, this podcast had me in tears and laughter, and it was so moving because our guest just is so present and her heart is so forward. So I loved this conversation. I'm talking about Ginny Yurich. She is an Enneagram Two Masters of Education. Listen to this. Mother of 5 and the founder and CEO of 1,000 Hours Outside, a global movement inspiring families to reclaim childhood, restore balance, and reconnect through time outdoors. She's got a background in education from the University of Michigan, and she's become a leading voice on the mental health benefits of outdoor play in an increasingly screen-saturated world. We all know this, right? It's like everybody's on their screens. She hosts the wildly popular 1,000 Hours Outside podcast. She has a book of the same name. She is a keynote speaker, and she also has authored the best-selling book, Until the Streetlights Come On, and her forthcoming book, which is coming out soon, Homeschooling, You're Doing It Right Just by Doing It. This book continues her passion for equipping families with encouragement and practical wisdom. I know you're going to love Ginny like I do. This is such a great conversation. Hey, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. So glad you're here, folks. Let's get to the man of the hour, Ian Cron.
Hey, Typology family, welcome back. I'm here with my dear friend, Anthony Skinner, my producer, my confrere, a word I only use in reference to Anthony Skinner. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
You know, it is a beautiful, beautiful 75-degree day here in Nashville, Tennessee. Maybe we are, and so I spent the whole day actually outside today. I walked 5 miles, which I do a lot, you know that. And I was thinking about our upcoming interview with Ginny Yurich and about what life was like for me as a little kid on a beautiful day like this when I was 8 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up, just so everyone knows, right, in this Irish Catholic household, too many kids, too much chaos. But here was the drill. We had 3 months off for summer. That's the first thing. We had 3 full months off for summer. None of this back to sports on August 1,
right,
or whatever they do now. And here's what a typical day in the summer looked like, Anthony.
Yeah.
I got up. I had a bowl of sugar frosted flakes. And then my mother threw me out of the house. Literally. Or she didn't even need to, because we just knew what to do. We would just get on our bikes and go. Right?
100%.
100%. And we spent between 8 o'clock and literally 6 o'clock.
Yeah, when the sun was going down. Yeah.
What Mom said, when the sun's going down, that's time for dinner.
My whole summer was like an episode of Survivor. If you were thirsty, you drank from the water hose, turned a stick into a lightsaber. If you were tired, you laid down in the grass like a dog. You know, hey, dude, I'll give you 2 lightning bugs for that Capri Sun.
How many times did you almost burn down the woods? Many times. I nearly burned the woods down. Playing with like magnifying glasses and maybe a little bit later smoking my mom's cigarettes out in the woods or whatever the case may be. But it was a feral childhood. I had a feral childhood. Okay.
Same.
We were just let loose. But I'll tell you, I learned more about life between 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock on Sunday on summer days than I did just about anywhere else. And we're talking with someone today who knows a lot about what we're talking about. And her work is something that I admire. Her name is Ginny Yurich. She is the author of, as you already mentioned, Until the Streetlights Come On and Homeschooling. You're doing it right just by doing it. Ginny, welcome to Typology. Did I have a great childhood in this regard?
I think so. It's interesting to think about kids not having that. Mm-hmm. There's so many that are not going to have that anymore. And the benefits of that type of freedom extends also to the adults because the kids aren't in their mom's hair and there isn't this anxiety about checking, like where are they? There was just this trust that you were going to come back when it was dinner time and not.
Or when you had a broken arm.
Yeah, right. Bleeding really bad. But it's kind of wild to me to think that all of a sudden there's a wild shift between a whole cohort of people who had their life like that, where they had that freedom and time to play, and it has changed within the past couple decades quite dramatically.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I want to just remind people that the reason this is a passion for Ginny is why, Ginny?
Well, because I was an awful mom. I mean, I was just... I was drowning. I had no idea how hard it was going to be. I mean, I thought this is going to be hard, but when they give you that baby and you go home from the hospital, I was like, this never ends. What am I supposed to do all day with this crying baby? And he doesn't sleep. And I just really struggled actually as a young mom. We had 3 kids right in a row. They said if you're nursing, there won't be another one for a while. And that's not true apparently. So, we had these kids. It's like 15 months and we had 17 months and I have all these little kids and I did not enjoy being a mom. I loved my kids, but every single day I dreaded, I was exhausted. And I just had a friend one time who said, she told me this, Charlotte Mason says that kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours a day whenever the weather is tolerable. And I thought, what? Wait, what? 4 to 6 hours a day? Who does that? Now, do you know Charlotte Mason is dead? She's like from the 1800s, but my friend didn't include that piece of information. And so I thought, well, I guess, is this something I should be doing? And she invited me to go to the park all the way back in 2011 from 9 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. And I thought, what are these kids going to do from 9 to 1? We're going to go to this park. There's no playground. It's just grass.
No screens.
They played. Can you even imagine? And I got to catch my breath as a mom. And it changed my life. It was the first good day I had as a mom, actually, in 2011. This 4-hour day outside that I thought was going to crash and burn. We changed how we were doing early childhood. And since, I have learned that time outside, unstructured, you don't have to bring Play-Doh. You don't have to bring a scavenger hunt. You can. You don't have to. You don't have to play Red Rover. You can let them do those things. It helps kids in every facet of their development. It helps their cognition. It helps their emotional state. It helps their social skills. It helps their physical bodies in ways from bone structure all the way to eyesight. And for parents who are interested, it helps teach spiritual lessons because God's truths are displayed in creation. So it helps the whole child.
I want to know your state. Were you sitting on a bench or were you sprawled out on a blanket or were you in a hammock?
No, I was on a blanket holding a baby. And, I tell you what, I had not felt that peace at all I was a mom for 3 years and I had not felt peace. I had not felt relaxed. I just had felt so much anxiety and really, I was really down. I mean, those days were so long and getting outside changed it for me. And then in turn, really aided in development for our kids. There are stacks and stacks and stacks of books that talk about the importance of getting kids outdoors.
So I love this. Now you're an Enneagram 2. Tell me
big
what it was
smile when
like.
you said that, Ian.
What's that?
Big smile when you said that. Big smile.
No, I'm actually not super happy about it. But I'm laughing because when we talked about it on my podcast, I was like, this really bared my soul to however many thousands of people are listening. So I'm just laughing about how much it displays about you that maybe you wouldn't really want to display.
Well, I mean, that's true for everybody of every single Enneagram type. And I will tell you that the longer you live with your type and do your own work on yourself, you learn to accept yourself with all the different shades of your personality. You know, you learn to just, well, there it goes. You know, like you grow and you change, and it becomes an easier garment to wear, if you will, something that is pretty comfortable. But what was it like when you realized that you were a 2?
Well, I learned from your book, actually. So
there
the book
it is.
The Road Back to You, over 1 million copies sold. So I actually had avoided this because I thought it was odd. I thought the word was weird, and people were really into it, always asking your number. And I was like, I'm just not doing it. And then actually it was David Thomas and Sissy Goff who told me about your book, and I already actually had bought it. I had it sitting on my shelf. They were like, it's the best book that's out there about Enneagram. I already had it. And then I didn't read it until actually after I read the fix. And I read the fix that you wrote, and we talked about it. And I was like, this is some of the most phenomenal writing I've ever read. It's witty. It keeps my attention. It's very practical. And so finally I was like, well, I'm going to take the plunge into the Enneagram. So I learned it from your book, which I absolutely love. And I immediately became enthralled and understand why everybody talks about it. And so I found out from your book on page 110 what it's like to be a 2. And I circled all of them except for 2. And I put yes with exclamation points by a lot of them. So that's how I learned. And I would say it's pretty eye-opening because I think you learn, you relate to it. And then there's motivation to be a healthier version of that. That was sort of my reaction. I was like, these are kind of problems. You know, how could I be a healthier version of this?
My sponsor the other day said something great. He says, you know, I feel like I'm the best version of myself I have ever been. And I think that's a lovely thing to be able to say about yourself, right? I'm the healthiest version of me that I've ever been. So when you look back on your life story, where do you see that 2 pattern of wanting to earn love by being helpful and being a giver showing up in your life?
Well, I've got 2 younger brothers. So, you know, I don't know. It probably comes from that. I think my dad is also a 2. He's a big helper. So I see that. And that's just maybe how you get accolades or how you get a response from people. I mean, I definitely lean toward the unhealthy side of it. So
really, why do you say that?
Well, because you and I talked about this on mine. Let me give you an example. I read this book really recently by a man named Kevin Chandler, and it's called The Hospitality of Need. It's a phenomenal book. So Kevin has some sort of a disability where he can't walk. He's been in a wheelchair since he was a kid, and now he's in his 30s. He's married. He's got this really cool nonprofit, and he went on a trip to Europe with a bunch of his friends, and they carried him in a backpack the whole time, almost like you do with like a young child. So he could go to Europe, can't bring his wheelchair, and they go on this trip. And so his nonprofit helps for families of kids with disabilities to have these backpacks that people can wear so the kids can go adventure with their family. It's a really cool thing. So I read his book. It's called The Hospitality of Need. And the point is that your needs allow other people to build community. And he talked about how he basically has needs every hour on the hour. And pretty much people have a relationship with him just because of who he is. And I was kind of floored. It was really challenging to me, actually, because I thought, well, how do you have a relationship with someone and they just like you for who you are?
You seem almost emotional talking about that, Ginny.
Yeah, because I thought, well, I don't think I really understand that. So that would be the unhealthy side, I think.
And what's the emotion that is coming up for you right now?
Well, I think it's just when you hit a certain age and you're like, I don't really even understand. Maybe there's like a baseline part of relationships that I don't really totally understand, where, you know, if you're filling in gaps for other people, or and you talked about this, Ian, like almost sometimes it can be like too much, right? Like, you know, you're stepping in where you shouldn't. you're coming in on the white horse. You talk about examples in the books, like if someone's car breaks down, you're like, I'll be there. Please call me. I want to be the one you call. And so then you start to think, well, I guess I don't really know another way to build relationships. And so it's kind of an uncomfortable, embarrassing feeling.
Hey, I just want to thank you for your vulnerability there and for your willingness to share what I think many people feel. So there's this song, Anthony, that I've just been listening to nonstop for the past week. It's an old Velvet Underground song. Lou Reed wrote it, but the version I listened to is Glenn Campbell did a cover of it, if you can believe it. Okay. The name of the song is Jesus. Do you know this song?
I vaguely remember, yeah.
Okay. It is so crazy great. And so Ginny, it only has 4 lines in the whole song, 3 identical verses, no bridge, no chorus. It's a nutty song. But here's the lyric. Jesus, help me find my proper place. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus, help me find my proper place, he says twice. Help me in my weakness because I'm falling out of grace. Jesus, help me find my proper place. Is that amazing?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're all trying to do. And you just, in your vulnerability, kind of were sharing, like, I don't think I have figured it out yet. I haven't figured out my proper place in relationships. Or maybe I don't have my proper place in relationships as figured out as I thought I did. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think part of it for twos, right, is learning something about mutuality. Like having a relationship be mutual versus one person always there doing all the heavy lifting and the other person maybe wanting to help, but the two is kind of always doing all of it.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah. And I think it can backfire. And it has backfired actually for me in terms of some relationships that I've broken somewhat severely, although part of it had to do with an unhealthy church experience. So, I think that there were some outside circumstances, but then I don't know. I'm like, well, was it a real relationship? Was that person in the relationship only because of what they could get from me? And then it's interesting to read about the other types and you would maybe relate to this, Ian. So you've got this big podcast. You have a book that has sold over 1 million copies, which is wild. It is wild. These books are phenomenal. The Fix, I learned so much. So you have these huge books. And one of the personality types, or I don't know if you call them personality types, but one of the Enneagram numbers is people might use you. So then it started to make me think, like, am I assessing well? Am I paying attention? And so I read this book by Tori Hope Peterson, where she was talking about, she grew up in the foster care system. So she was learning about her relationships. And she said she has to really rein herself in to not double text, to not double invite. She says, if I invite, I wait. I wait for an invitation. And I have the self-control and the wherewithal to make sure that I wait. And I thought, well, that was a really practical thing to try.
Yes. And there's actually been a lot of research around the phenomenon you're talking about. I'm not going to get this right. It's not a personality style. Well, maybe it is. But they call it fawning, where, for example, if a person thinks someone else is mad at them, like it's just upends them. Yeah, like they and I think 2s and 9s can fall into that category. Like 2s, for example, do not like relationships that are broken and need mending. It will keep them up at night, and then they've got to deal with it first thing in the morning, right? And sometimes they do it in a way that I think betrays themselves, because sometimes it's really not on them. But let me ask you a question.
Like desperation.
Yes. So do you, when something goes wrong in a relationship, do you automatically assume it's your fault?
No. I don't.
Keep going.
I don't, but I definitely would be one that would overthink. And so the strategy that I have to use for myself is to bounded in. So if I'm having a relationship problem, I would have to say, okay, Ginny, you're allowed to think about this from 8 to 8:30 p.m. And beyond that, you have to live your life and do your day-to-day stuff. So I would have to do something like that in order to not overthink it.
Yeah. Well, I think setting those kinds of internal boundaries sometimes around things is really, really healthy. I just know that 2s are the most interpersonal number on the Enneagram. Like relationships mean more to you than they do to just about any other type. You know, I mean, like you're just all in on relationships because you are loving, caring, supporting, kind, generous, all those things in your healthiest expression. And here's the shadow side of it. Those relationships provide a steady supply of self-esteem. Like you rely on relationships to bolster your self-esteem. And that's the more shadow aspect. Is that your experience?
It's really interesting to talk about these things because I haven't given it a lot of thought. But I will say that when relationships are awry, it's very upending. And I don't think I have a good skill set of how to deal with that. And I guess learning about the different types and the different numbers, it has opened my eyes to how much I don't know.
Yes.
Of how many more things that there are to learn. And it's given me some insight into my own kids. This is something that you and I talked about. You know, how do I parent in light of knowing these different numbers? And are there things that I could do that unintentionally push one of my children who is a different number than me into an unhealthy pattern? So I guess I don't know the answer to some of the questions because they're new questions to me.
Yeah.
And
isn't that exciting though?
It is. It's very exciting.
Yeah. And upsetting in a way, right? Like, cause it's both, right? It feels, when you learn the Enneagram, and sometimes I hear this over and over again, it kind of can pull the rug out from underneath your own self-concept, but also the way that you conceptualize other people.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's both exhilarating and a little spooky. And I think that transition can be difficult, but it's I promise it's the more you go down the wormhole and learn about yourself and other people, the better you will be at loving and caring for your kids and other people.
Mm-hmm.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Have you ever gone looking for mental health advice online and ended up more overwhelmed than when you started? Well, I have. One click leads to another, and suddenly you're knee-deep in must-try wellness hacks, cold plunges, meditation apps, sleep trackers. Goodness, it's overwhelming, right? You're left wondering, okay, but what actually matters or works for me? That is why I'm such an advocate for talking with a therapist. There's nothing quite like having a trusted guide who can help you make sense of your life story, finding what's true, and give you practical tools to navigate life with more clarity. Therapy isn't just for moments of crisis. It's for anyone who wants to build resilience, set healthy boundaries, and show up better in their relationships and work. Now, that's where BetterHelp comes in. With over 30,000 licensed therapists, they've served more than 5 million people worldwide. And it's not just big numbers. The app holds a 4.9 out of 5 rating from over 1.7 million reviews. And here's what I love. It's flexible. You can join sessions from anywhere. And if the first therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch anytime. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can connect you with mental health professionals who get it. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/typology podcast. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/typology podcast.
A question for you: Do you experience some sort of level of that same upending when you have friction in your relationship with your children?
We don't have that much friction. Then maybe that goes back to the homeschooling book. That is actually a really interesting thing. And going outside. We do not have hardly any friction in our home. And I don't know if that's just an unusual thing, but our girls were going, so we have kids that are ages 17, 15, 14, 12, and 9. So we've got 5 kids. And 3 of them are in high school this year. 1 is in middle school, 1's in elementary. And our oldest daughter, she was doing a youth group when she was in middle school. And I remember she came home and she said, all everybody talks about in this little middle school group of girls is how much they fight with their mom. And she says to me, why would anybody ever fight with their mom? We don't have a lot of friction. We're like outside. I don't know. I have friction with my spouse. We could talk about that.
What type is your spouse?
I don't know. I think he's a 6. But you're not really supposed to type other people, right?
Right. I was just curious if he had investigated, because boy, Ginny, wait till you get that information. That's a real eye opener. So, do your older kids, are they daughters, sons? Are they?
So we have boy, girl, girl. We tipped girl at the end.
Okay. So do your older kids ever tell you that you're a little too involved in their lives, or they feel like they're pushing you away?
Well, when you have 5 kids, you can't be too involved in their life. Right? I don't know. You would know that from your family growing up, right?
Yeah, you're right. You can't.
I would like to be more, but
Here's something you would have heard in my house. Hey, look, Kevin has a spear sticking out of his chest. Tell him to wait 10 minutes. I'm fixing something.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of kids, and to a degree, I think that appears to be a weakness, especially in today's society. I think kids are pretty controlled, and that is something that is contributing to their mental health decline. I mean, you really want to feel control of your life, and a lot of kids are scheduled from dawn to dusk. So instead of having that freedom to go, they're scheduled. Someone's always telling them what to do, and it feels like as a parent, that is the right thing to do because you're going to guide everything and decide everything. But in the end, that can hamper their development. So 5 kids, it's a lot of people to keep track of. And in some ways, the weakness part of that, where I can't control it, has actually turned out, I think, to be kind of a strength for their development. Yes.
Okay. I do too, the way that you're describing it, because sometimes 2s can become overly, I don't want to say smothering. That's too strong a word.
But I would have been that.
You would have been that.
I would have been that. I would have been checklist. Let me check the box. Has everybody learned every single standard and content standard? It's like in kindergarten, it's like, has everybody learned their 100 Dolce sight words? And can everybody, I would have checked the box. I would have been that type of a mom, but it was too chaotic because there's too many kids. And so I had to do an about face. I really ended up learning that there's all sorts of different educational philosophies out there. And some of them are driven by the fact that kids are biologically designed to self-educate. That God made them in a way that their brains drive their bodies to different movements that help their brain to form these incredible structures. It's actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is. And I love this whole 1,000 hour. Explain to people the 1,000 hours. You've got the 1,000 Hours Outside podcast, but so you're talking to somebody, and Anthony and I did that cold start, just talking about, what it was like for us as kids growing up. I'm 64. Anthony, I won't tell his age because he's a lot older than I am. But
nice.
I grew up outside. I grew up on the beach. I grew up we had a huge pile. I mean, 50 acres of woods in the backyard, like off of our backyard, where all the kids in my neighborhood. And I grew up in a really sort of a dense suburban area, even though we had this big sort of wooded area. And we just lived outdoors all day, until I was, in middle school. That's what I did. I just ran around outside all day long. I think back to those days. I think there were no leash laws on dogs. Dogs just ran. Am I right, Anthony?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my dog followed me everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
My dog just followed me everywhere.
And when you have
everybody's
your
dog
4 or 5
them.
friends, you have a pack of dogs following you, right? Yeah.
Totally. Chasing you on your bikes.
Yeah, 100%.
While you're going down a hill without a helmet on, I might add.
Yeah, that's right.
And we just, we're kind of left out there to fend for ourselves. And for the most part, I'd say that was the way to live life. And I do see where, and today, Annie and I are huge outdoors people, right? So I'm not fooling when I say I probably walk in the woods 15 to 25 miles a week. So at least 3 miles would be a short day, 5 mile day is normal. But in the woods, and a lot of my time, some of it's spent praying, but I make a point of not wearing any AirPods. I don't bring a phone with me. I walk in the woods on trails without anything. And I think actually it goes back to my childhood of just loving being in that space and seeing the value, the spiritual and emotional. Like I would be, like I'm a pretty tightly wrapped guy. Like I am. So just for the sake of transparency, I'm anxious. I tend toward the melancholy. I can be a little, I have a stormy personality. When it's up, it's up. When it's down, it's down. I mean, that can all happen in fairly short periods of time, and the two most important probably places in my life that have been consistently true throughout my whole life have been the communion table, Eucharist, and the outdoors. Those are probably the two most important places in my life.
Wow.
Outdoors.
And it stems to your childhood. And so you can imagine how, especially today, it is a stormy time to be a child. You talk about social media, you talk about the comparison, the amount of things that you see about someone else's life that you never saw before, the cyberbullying, the cheating, even that. I just saw a graph the other day for OpenAI, and OpenAI, the amount of use, it just plummets as soon as June rolls around. What they're saying, it's because everybody's cheating on their schoolwork. And as soon as August comes around, it just skyrockets back up. So all of those pressures, the pornography that kids are dealing with, and to imagine not having that balm of nature, to not have that foundation of it. So 1,000 hours outside is just that. I'm not the most creative person. I have a math degree. So, creativity is not really my thing. It is just what it is. We are aiming to get outside for 1,000 hours over the course of a year. That is historically normal and probably is a low number. And they're talking about being outside from 8 until the sun goes down, and you probably went back out. That was the whole thing. You come home to eat, and then everybody's back out playing with the neighbor kids. People are outside for hours on end. Kids were outside for hours. And the average child today is outside for 4 to 7 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's the statistic. And 4 to 7 hours on screens. So it's this significant imbalance. And what's really interesting about it is, aside from the fact that it's going to help kids with their cognition, there's this incredible statistic that says elderly people who dance regularly have a 76% less chance of developing dementia. Elderly people who dance regularly, a 76% less chance of developing dementia. And that's because complex movements enhance the brain structure and they protect it. So kids outdoors, they move in complex ways. You were talking about going down the steep hill on your bike without a helmet. Well, why? Because there's thrill in that. And our bodies are designed to grow and try harder things. And you bike without holding on. And you do all of these different tricks. And that's just how childhood goes if kids are given the time and the space. So this is going to help them with these brain functions. This is going to be a healing balm to their soul. This is going to help them with their social skills, obviously. But we are in a rapidly changing world. And so we have to approach childhood in a way that prepares them for jobs that don't exist yet and for having a lot of different careers. They say the average kid today will have 7 careers in their lifetime, not 7 jobs, but 7 careers. So that's 7 new skill sets to learn. That's a ton of different coworkers to have and bosses. It's that unstructured time where you're learning how to negotiate. You're learning how to put on a ragtag baseball game, and you got 6 players, and who's going to be the pitcher for both teams. You're having to figure out all of those things, and you have to monitor it yourself, and you have to make sure it's fair. All of those things that you do in that open space of play, those things prepare you for tomorrow. Because you're learning the skill sets of grit and resilience and flexibility and creativity And those are what kids are going to need. And they're not getting that from screen devices because that's someone else's creativity.
Okay, so just so you know, and Anthony will, I think, give me a thumbs up on this. Having spent my life in creative fields, pretty much, songwriting, author, books, that kind of stuff, or being richly immersed in the creative process of other people as a reader, as a listener, as a participant. You said, I'm not a very creative person. It's really simple. Well, let me just tell you something about creativity. Like a lot of times, creativity is revealed in something very, very simple that other people overlook. See, what you saw was a depth of truth and goodness in something very simple, and then you presented it to the world in an accessible, actionable way. Like, let's just spend 1,000 hours outside. And here's why, right? And so I actually didn't want to let you go by sort of like undervaluing how actually creative that is to take something that simple and make it that accessible and actionable for other people. That's very creative, and it's actually kind of a wonderful service to the world, because I actually really believe in what you're talking about, like getting kids, but also adults outside. Like, maybe I should do this for adults. I'll take over your adult market, okay? I worry, that we are losing touch with how enchanted the world is.
Oh, we found a praying mantis this afternoon.
Oh my gosh!
Every year, one time we find a praying mantis, and it was just the best. And it's such a simple thing. What's interesting to me about the adult piece, Ian, is that especially when I was a younger mom, I was really jealous, honestly, of the moms that I knew growing up when I was a kid. So, in my neighborhood growing up, it was the same thing. The mom across the street locked the door. She had 4 kids, and in the summer she locked them out. I don't know how they ate. And I just remember thinking, what could she possibly be doing in there? I actually recently walked over and asked her. Like last October, I was at my parents' house. They live across the street. So I was like, what were you doing in there? She was like, chores, making food, all of the things that moms need to do. She was like, I was not sitting here watching TV, but she would lock the kids out. And I, for a long time, was kind of jealous of that. I thought, gosh, if I just would have been a mom a couple decades ago, because I have to be pretty involved with getting our kids outside. We've got to call up friends. We've got to find other people to go with because they don't naturally want to go. People kind of think that our kids must because we've spent a lot of time outside since 2011. It's been a long time. So they think, oh, my kids don't ever want to go. Of course, they'd rather be inside where it's air conditioned and there's no bugs and, there's screens and they have toys and all of these different things. And so the key factor to getting kids outside is to incorporate friends. And there's not a lot of friends outside anymore. They're not running around the neighborhood because they're at sports and they're at adult-directed activities. And so it's a lot of work. It's been a lot of coordination on my part. And for the most part, I've joined in on all of it. So I have spent 1,000 hours outside since 2011 personally, and I've needed it. It's really easy for the adult, like you're talking about. It's so easy to get sucked in by screens. You can get sucked in by remote work. I mean, there's always more work that you could be doing. There's always more chores that you could be doing. And so it's actually been a really protective measure for my mothering. I've had such a great time being a mom. I didn't miss it, So actually, in some ways, it's worked out better. I used to be jealous of those moms, and I'm not anymore. I actually think this really worked out well for me.
Oh, it sure sounds like it. So what, you're kind of new to the Enneagram, understanding that you're an Enneagram Two, beginning to step back maybe from your own experience to observe your life and ask good questions, healthy questions. If I asked you this question at the deepest level, tell me what you would say. What is it that Ginny really wants?
To have fun.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me more.
So that's also, then I get confused because isn't that a 7?
Well, okay. you have to be very careful that you don't, you have elements of all 9 types. You contain elements of all 9 types, right? So you don't be surprised that, oh boy, I read about the 9 and how they like to do this. That sounds like me. And in the 6, and that's very common. There's just one type that's going to sound more like you than the other 8, right?
Yes.
And that's how we kind of come in on what your basic core type is. But what is it that you really like in your heart of hearts? Like, all right. So, in the gospel, when Jesus, he's walking down the street, 2 disciples are walking behind him, or would-be disciples. And he turns to them and he goes, "What do you want?"
And is my answer stupid? Really?
No, it's not.
I'm curious. I guess I'd be curious what other people say. That is really my primary motivation. So, for example, it's coming into Labor Day weekend, so I have no idea how far in advance you record, but it's coming into Labor Day weekend. And like my highest aim is to take our kids up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and to swim in the freezing cold waters of Lake Superior and to bring a really good novel and to walk around the property there that we stay at these cabins. And that is, and often to do it with friends. This time we're not doing it with friends, but often we'll try and do that with another family. And to have those sort of rich life experiences that are simple. They're simple, but that is sort of my North Star.
Okay, so is it what I'm hearing in that is that the fun is centered in relationships?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes, because I wouldn't want to do it by myself. But, to take our kids and to take our family or to meet up with another family and to go do that together and to build rich memories.
That's 2-ish.
Yeah.
That's 2-ish. See, if you said to me, I want to ditch my family so I can go, kite sailing in El Salvador by myself, unrestricted, without anybody, asking me to do something, again, that's a little bit of an unfair picture of a 7, but that would make me start to ask you other questions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But what it sounds to me like is that your fun is very relationship centered. Like as you said, it's not something I would do by myself, right? But it's about building memories. It's about community building, right?
Yeah. Yes.
As you know, I believe the Enneagram is one of the most powerful tools for developing self-awareness. But to gain the benefits, you need to know your type. Taking an Enneagram assessment is the first step toward understanding yourself and the people around you. It offers insights that can enhance your self-awareness, personal growth, emotional intelligence, your relationships. It's not just a one-time test. It's a lifelong tool that will help you navigate life with more clarity, purpose, and empathy. And now, when you take my brand new Typology Institute Enneagram assessment, you'll receive a research-backed, scientifically evidenced, comprehensive report that's easy to understand. Not only will you learn your dominant Enneagram type, but you'll gain insight into aspects of the Enneagram most other assessments don't cover, such as your dominant wing, your subtype, orientation to time, and even stances. Get your results today at typologyinstitute.com/assessment. Enter the discount code Typology Podcast on the checkout page to get 10% off your assessment. Again, that's typologyinstitute.com/assessment and enter Typology Podcast for 10% off. So a couple of things for you as we wrap up, right? Like Beatrice Chestnut, who is another author about Enneagram stuff, and she's pretty great. She's a 2, and she says, what 2s really want is to be liked. And I remember saying to her, I want to be liked. She goes, no. We really want to be liked. And we really want to be in the deep relationship, and we want to be needed and to be appreciated. Like being appreciated is a big theme in the life of 2s, right? And when they're not appreciated, eventually they can get a little resentful, right? Like when they feel unappreciated for too long, right? Like if things go by, which is hard with motherhood, because that's basically, I just described motherhood. Lots of giving, not nearly as appreciated as you'd like.
I think that's a good point, though, because in learning that, it helps you to learn how to set boundaries. So it helps you to learn not to be resentful. So I'll give an example. Let's say there was someone, it might be a real life example, I always send a birthday card to. Like, let's say I've sent a birthday card to this person for 14 years, and they don't seem to care or appreciate it, and they don't reciprocate. Then I have the choice to either be resentful because I'm looking for that appreciation, or to just stop sending the birthday cards and just like let it be. Our relationship is different than what I thought it was, or the birthday cards don't matter, or whatever. So it's a very small example, but I'm learning to do less and to really check my motivations and to not do things that would make me feel resentful, that would upend a relationship. And it's stupid. It doesn't matter anyway. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense, right? What you're talking about is what we started off with, which is that whole idea of mutuality, right? And relationships are never 50-50, right? There are times in friendships or with our kids where, you're carrying 70% of the load because they have a lot going on, and then it shifts, and then they're carrying 65% and you've got 35. It's fluid, it's dynamic, it's always shifting. But if you're kind of always in the realm of, we're both equally invested in this relationship, then I think that's called health, right? And in that situation, it's kind of a classic two situation, right? You've been sending this card for 14 years, and they don't send you a birthday card, right? Okay, and you have been doing this for 14 years. And there's a couple of options there, right? One is I will continue to send the card without any expectation of their doing anything for me. That's one option.
And even the appreciation. That's
Yes.
the big piece, because you brought that up. And I think there is an expectation of loyalty or appreciation. You don't really actually care if they do anything back for you because you're a two.
Right.
That makes you feel uncomfortable.
Well, actually, twos typically have a silent desire that if I meet your needs, you will meet mine. Right? It's this sort of, if I take care of you, you'll take care of me mentality. And if the other person doesn't reciprocate and the two keeps giving, the two sets themselves up for resentment and eventually maybe sometimes blowing their cork about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. And the being liked is interesting too. I think I told you, I feel like I'm in the wrong field. I'm in a field that's heavily review centered. So then you're like, oh gosh, I wish I was in a different career.
Don't read them.
Yeah, no, that's good advice.
Just don't read them.
Yeah.
Whenever I drop a book, I read the first 10 reviews and then I stop. Yeah, I don't want to know. Because I don't even know these people. I have no idea who they are. I do care what people think about my work, but not so much that I'm going to let it put me in bondage to their approval. I'm always grateful when people leave reviews and stuff like that. So good or bad, that's fine, but man, oh man, it's a sure recipe for depression if you just start reading people's reviews and then taking them as gospel.
Yeah, it's good advice.
You know. So, but I was going to say just in closing was I love the work that you're doing. I do love this idea of challenging people, families, children to spend 1,000 hours outside, but even more, I want that for everybody. Like people need to be outside more. For all of the neurological, psychological, social, spiritual reasons that there are, without their phones, without their AirPods in, without listening to podcasts, actually just listening to birds. The brain is doing really important things in those moments. Like, actually, I would say this. Your brain is writing books while you're walking in the woods.
That's right. Like you wouldn't be who you are or where you are today. You personally, I don't think, without that time in the walking and the woods and all of that time for those ideas to sort of come together, that's when it happens.
Yes, it does. It does for sure. So I commend that work. And I just love the way that I love your energy. You have very two energy. And you're such a charming and kindly presence in this conversation. And it's just been a delight to have you. And I wish you the best with this new book on homeschooling. You're doing it right just by doing it. That dropped in May. And then, of course, your previous book, Until the Streetlights Come On. And then the 1,000 Hours Outside podcast. Tell people about that.
It has just been quite an extraordinary experience. I started it because, well, everybody had podcasts, right? So you kind of start things because other people do that. But it didn't really work for me, and the kids were little, and I just would read into a little microphone on my phone back in 2019. So I set it aside. And then 2.5 years later, an author reached out to me and said, I'm launching a book. Can I come on your podcast? I was like, I kind of have one. Do I tell him I haven't posted on it for 2.5 years? But I'm a 2. So he said, can you help me launch my book? And so I said, yes. I said, yes. So that changed the whole course of my life, actually. It turned out I loved it. I just had my 550th episode, and I brought him back on. His name is Dr. Chris Winter. He talks about sleep and the importance of light and how light really affects your sleep. Anyway, he said he had no idea that he was the first interview I'd ever done. He said it was like a fake it till you make it story. So I just said, sure, you can come on. And it has been such an extraordinary experience because it's a win-win-win. You know, it's like you get to talk to an author about, I never could have ever imagined, you know, I'll walk into Barnes & Noble and see your book there. And then I'll be like, I've talked to him. And I can go through this author, that author. And the audience is such a win-win-win. So the podcast is a blessing. It is encouraging families to, I think, do what they probably know in their heart is the right thing to do for their kids. It's the harder right, I think, in this day and age. And it's real easy to give the screen. It's real easy to be scared. Fear makes us double down, I think, on control. And I think that we need reminders. We need reminders often on letting go of the reins and trusting our children, trusting ourselves, and living the life that we really want to live, because it's one shot. You get one of them, and we're trying to encourage. So it's a broad range of topics. There's over 550 episodes, and I love it. It's a daily show. Comes out Monday to Friday. You've been on twice, and both of the episodes are fantastic.
Wow. Every day. Whew. That's some work right there, girl. Wow.
That's good. It's really good. It has been a delight of my life. And I never expected it. And that's kind of the thing with kids is you don't know. You know, they say 85% of the jobs that are going to be here in 2030 haven't been invented yet. Like, I can't even wrap my head around that. There's no way. How could that possibly be true? But even if it's partially true, we are parenting for a rapidly changing age. And so these topics of knowing yourself, self-awareness, like you talk about, topics of addiction, like you talk about in the fix, topics of just learning the skills that people call soft skills, but the skills that will help kids with the constant change and how to deal with that are really important. So that's kind of what we're focused on.
Oh, man. So good. Well, Ginny, again, thank you so much for being on. Anthony, I love you, my brother.
Love
and
you.
To all of you listening, gosh, we think the world of you, and we wish you love, and we wish you joy, and we wish you peace, we wish you healing, and we wish you rest. Until next time.